Hey, what's up? Life is good, homie. All right. So, how was Vegas? Okay. Yeah. There you go. All right. So, yeah. Anyways, when I said because we were originally supposed to go on Monday and I couldn't, my adopted daughter, her child was having all kinds of issues. She's only 6, so they took her to emergency. Then wound up having to take her to the children's hospital because they still didn't know what exactly was wrong with her, and they just found out today that she has mono. Yeah. So yeah. Yeah. Exactly. What's the alternative? Yeah. Yeah. So now so she's basically just gonna feel like shit for a month and be run down and yeah. But she's only 6, so I don't know if she has the capacity to suffer that we do once we get older. Yeah. No, she lives in Oregon now. So yeah, she's all the way up there. Yeah. Mhm. Yeah. Hey, it's all good. No problem. Yeah, right, right. Who was just doing this stuff? It's like, it's all good. Okay. Yeah. Well, it's like, and then in the meantime, because everything's been so, fast and furious, we had, Earl Thomas signed with Baltimore, and now Clay Matthews is with the Rams, and Randall Cobb went to Dallas, and Cameron Wake went to Tennessee, and Tyreek Hill is, yeah, right. That whole, that's funny is that you say that whole scandal with, the test scores and everything involving USC and all those other schools. And it's weird because here you can pay pretty much like $400,000 to get your kid into college illegally. That's why for the rich, I think the college degree is just a status symbol. They don't even need that because if you can pay $500,000 to bribe your kid's way into college, you can just set him up a trust fund. He doesn't. It's not like he has to go out and get a job. Yeah, I think it's because it's just kind of a neener. You know, we're rich and we have degrees from Harvard. We're better than you. That's all. Yeah. Right. Mm-hmm. Yeah. Yeah. Mm-hmm. Yeah. Yeah. Well, we just have to remember that no matter how much lying and cheating they do, when it comes to politics, all celebrity opinions are sublime. Okay? Because it's all about fairness. and they're on the side of the little guy, even if it means jacking somebody for a scholarship.
Yeah, exactly. Although they're against ultimately crime and violence, but there's benefits there too. But
Yeah.
the real story behind this, and it was funny. I was flipping stations. Apparently, Dr. Drew has a punch to KBC, but the most profound thing I heard was this guy called up, and I've been saying this for years. The whole reason people are getting so depressed to such lows is that the UC and Cal State system was set up so that in-state students could go to college because their parents paid taxes and go at a reduced rate compared to a private school and out-of-state school, is now in this boondoggle where they're accepting way more out-of-state and foreign students
Yeah.
to basically make more money.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, we know like really smart kids who are getting waitlisted at Cal State schools. Like we know this one kid, and he got a fairly sizable Gonzaga deal that we put in about like half of the tuition for him to go there. And he plays baseball too, which helps. But regardless, like he's gotten into a few other good schools even not to play baseball.
Mm-hmm.
And he got waitlisted at Long Beach State and San Diego State.
Yeah.
And I'm like, what is wrong here? Like he's actually a really good student, nice kid, involved in stuff. Like this kid's actually managing a little league team in our division this year, just because he like wanted to give back, and someone told him they needed a coach, and he and his two buddies are doing it. They're all high school seniors. So
Yeah.
I mean, it's astounding to me. Like I don't know. Once upon a time, San Diego State was the party school. I don't know what happened. Now you can't even get in there.
Yeah. Now it's so funny as we talk about money is that, and when I looked at that, I haven't really gotten deep into that whole scandal, but when they talk about like the athletic scholarships that were given for kids that aren't even on the team,
Yeah.
and then you have USC just got a new president today, but this whole thing of plausible deniability with all these, the presidents of these schools, it's like, well, I don't know what's going on there. I don't know what's going on. It's like, what the fuck is your job? Seriously.
That you do too well for Wells Fargo, but I guess no one realized that.
Yeah. It's like, God.
But yeah, it's how are you in charge of something and you don't know what's going on? That's like that's like saying putting your hands over your ears and saying I can't hear you, so therefore you
Yeah.
don't say anything.
I mean, why don't you, if you checked on just vetted everything in the athletic department once a month, spend one day doing that every month.
Yeah. I need a hazmat suit.
Yeah. Well, I think it's like.
My favorite part is the one sport they were lying about is water polo. My daughter's played one season of that, and like I'm exhausted just watching those girls in the pool. I can only imagine how hard it is to play.
Oh.
Even crew, like I knew
Yeah.
you guys that did crew in my dorm at Rutgers, and I was like, these guys are monsters.
Mm-hmm.
You wouldn't know if they were football players or not. Like they're in great shape.
Yeah, that's right. Those were the scholarships they had given that weren't actually. Yeah.
They're non-revenue sports and theoretically
Mm-hmm.
below the radar.
But if you line up all the staff and everything, all that they do is for the benefit and the betterment of children and integrity and giving everyone a solid foundation and fairness for all, right?
Yeah. So my dad told me, I don't care what you do, just don't be a teacher.
Teach.
He said one of the most negative places on earth is a teacher's room in a high school. And he was right. I saw that when I was a substitute. So
Yeah. Yeah. Well, that's one of the things that we've never discussed it, but I really don't. And I know they're supposedly underpaid heroes and all that stuff, but I honestly, across the board, just as a general thing, I'm not crazy about teachers. Just.
No, I'm not either. Go on that California, whatever, like Freedom of Information Act site. I forget what it's called.
Mm-hmm.
Go see any teachers you know and how much they make. And then remember this, that's based on 10 months. So,
Right.
imagine if you annualize that up. It's obscene. And you can go get, some online master's degree to jack up your pay more. I mean, it'll tell you how much their benefits are, how much their
Mm-hmm.
pension is. It's sickening. And then they complain that they don't get paid enough. And then, in our district, which is like people at work believe me when I tell them this, but in most schools you'll have like a minimum day once a month or something. Like
Mm-hmm.
our district has one day a week. There's a minimum day, and in their infinite wisdom, if your kids go to two schools, like a high school and a junior high, or a junior high and elementary, it may not necessarily be the same day of the so I don't know what you do if you're like two working parents.
Yeah.
So like every Thursday, my son has half day, and I don't know why.
Yeah. Yeah, and every teacher that I've known, I mean, they all make, they all pull like 70,000 a year and above, and once they're tenured. So,
Yep.
and it's like the people I've talked to who say teachers are underpaid, and what I always ask them is, okay, how much should they be making? And I have yet to have anyone actually give me a fucking number. You know,
Exactly.
it's like, okay, they make 70,000. You say they're underpaid. How much should they be making to teach third grade?
Yep. I'm going to date myself, but at least you'll relate to it. So I used to tape Howard Stern when I left for high school, right?
Uh
And I
huh.
would listen to like my tape deck was so old, so it was only like 45 minutes I get out of it. It didn't automatically flip it. I wasn't that high tech yet.
Yeah.
So one day he had this is like in the probably 1990. He had Al Michaels on, and he got into an argument with a woman who said teachers are underpaid, and he was basically like, it's essentially you've got a job that a lot of people can do, and you're getting paid by the government, and it's not like you're generating any revenue, but you're trading that off for job stability and your summers off. And she was just like being like belligerent with him,
Mm-hmm.
and he's like screaming at her, and he's like, "Al, am I right or what?" And Al Michaels goes, "Howard, it's economics 101, supply and demand." And I mean that's it at the end of the day.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah, well, the other thing is, I mean, now it's not so much because they can just check online, but I remember looking over the years, and every now and then you would have a school or different schools who would actually sweep through and see which teachers actually had teaching credentials. And sure enough, you would have someone who had been there, been a teacher for 4, 5, 6 years, no complaints or anything, and all of a sudden, oh, you're not qualified to do this job. It's like, if you can do it, honestly, if you can do a PowerPoint presentation, you can be a fucking teacher. It's, and you're teaching, and not only that, I could see it being tough your first year, but if you're teaching third grade, it's the same fucking thing year after year after year after year to a different group of kids.
Exactly.
And that's it.
Changes are your dates. That's it.
Right. Yeah. But I think they know that. I mean, like the system, and that's why it's like, okay, yes, this is an easy job, but you have to dump 120 grand into the public education, in the institution of higher learning before you can get it.
Yep. The whole thing's screwed up.
Yeah. Yep. Okay. Let's see here. Well, that's my one buddy who graduated from UCI, and then his first job was doing outreach. But see, you need a college degree to do that. So it's like, I need a college degree just to get a job telling other people to go to college. What?
The only thing that I've ever heard that tops that is my neighbor here who tried to tell my dad, and he told me this once too, but I don't know if it's true. That, he was in medical school at Penn, and when my dad, just trying to like probe him a little more, sensing bullshit, said, "Oh yeah, what happened?" He told him it wasn't in God's plan, and my dad came in and reported this to me. Like he was there visiting me one year, and I said, "Oh, that's just bullshit code for I flunked out."
Mm-hmm.
He's like, what does he do now?" And I'm like, "He's a pastor in a strip mall."
Yeah.
So I mean, you don't even need a degree for that. That's my favorite. So yeah, the best is he's they're I remember when everything was turning to shit in '08. He told me the banks should be bailed out, and I'm like, well, in theory I agree with you. They made their own bailout.
Right.
But at the same time, if we do that, we're gonna have 1929 again. I don't think we need food lines around here. Well, this is the same guy who like plays the system. His wife's like some sort of like freelance professor, so I'll just
Mm-hmm.
do it anywhere. But
Yeah.
like there's this thing called God's Pantry that they get food from every week, and I'm like, you gotta be effing kidding me. Like, you want to talk about playing the system under the guise of God? I mean, I don't know. That's my. But
No, I know.
You can't be a teacher. I guess you could be a pastor, right? You
Yeah, and that's one of the reasons why, I do believe in God Almighty and everything, but me and church, just in general, our relationship is rather tenuous because there's just too many things. When you get into group stuff, there's too much stuff that I don't agree with. We may agree with this thing at the core, but other than that, you asked me to accept way too many things that I'm just not comfortable with, you know?
yeah, and especially my religion that I inherited, Catholicism.
Yeah,
Priests can't marry, priests can't be females, but we can cover up child molestation.
yeah,
And I have such a hard time with it. Even my wife, who's probably more devout Catholic than I am,
yeah.
like she's been in this funk lately where we haven't been since Christmas, and I know
Hmm.
deep down it's because of all this bullshit still floating around in the cover up, and I'm just like,
Right.
I can't, I can't deal with it. I just can't. Like, don't tell me we're a tolerant religion when you're against themselves. And some kid in Kentucky said he can't get the chickenpox vaccine because in the 1960s they got it from aborted fetuses. Like, come on, enough.
Yeah. It's well, and to me, if you focus on the what's the pure thing at the center, then you wind up not really conflicted about those other things. Because I have other friends who are Catholic and stuff, and it's like this. And if you live by principles, then when a priest gets in trouble, there's no conflict as to what's right and what's wrong. You already know it's wrong, and that's that. It doesn't mean you don't believe in God or anything. It means that this person did wrong because he's human, and he did wrong. That's that. You don't have to, not one of those, well, it's in God's hands or anything like that. He did wrong, throw his ass in jail, just like you would your atheist neighbor if he did the same thing. You know? That's it.
There's been a rash of there have been in general, but there's been a few in our town suicides,
Mm-hmm.
and one of them, like, they've kind of like, I don't know, they tried to sweep it under the rug, but my daughter knows who the kid is, and he was clearly gay. He was in the dance squad,
Yeah.
but his parents are like, Bible thumping Calvary Chapel people to
Mm-hmm.
the core,
Yeah.
and we don't know if like he came out and they flipped out, or tried to do like this whole like like Alcoholic Anonymous things where they're gonna
Mm-hmm.
like convert you from being gay, but yeah, like something happened where the wheels came off and the
Yeah.
poor kid hung himself, and I feel terrible. Like you'll hear like people say like, oh, we're gonna pray about it, like, oh, okay, you know, God's busy listening to all the athletes who are thanking him right now. We get around to the event.
Yeah. Yeah, it's funny. The whole gay thing is that, because when I was in high school and everything, and when you're between 15 and 25 is when you're at your, when we say homophobic worst, I guess.
Yeah.
But I never actually called someone who was gay. I never actually called them anything. The only person you call a fag is someone who's straight, because to them it's an insult. You know?
Yeah, exactly.
They tell a gay person they're gay, it's like, well, okay.
Yeah.
Now what? Water is wet?
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
I call that all the time.
Yeah.
I don't know. And there's a kid I've known since kindergarten who I swear to God was gay, and finally about 10 years ago on social media I read that he was. So
Mm-hmm.
I never called him a pussy or a homo or
Yeah.
like it's like I don't know. I call people jackasses. I'm not trying to demean donkeys.
Right, exactly. You have a donkey phobe? Is that what it is?
That's exactly. Donkeys are good animals. I've seen them in habits.
I'm not really down with the term homophobic, because it's like homophobic. So that's like someone's arachnophobic, can't be in the same room with a spider. So it's like if you're homophobic, someone who's gay comes in, you run screaming into the night. Is that what happens?
Yeah. Yeah, I don't know. Or agoraphobia, yeah, I get it.
Why aren't there negrophobes then? Shit. Yeah, really. But you just gotta tolerate them. Fucking millennials. Okay, all right.
I blame them for everything. I really do. I can't even blame it on Generation Z. They've got jobs yet.
Yeah. So civilization is over. We're at Generation Z.
Yeah.
So there's nowhere to go.
Up. Yeah, like Microsoft Excel, we go to column AA. I don't know.
Yeah. AA. Yeah, I think I'll have a drink on that one.
Maybe get traded.
Okay. All right. So let's see here. Let's see. Freddie Kitchens there. Let's see. All right. So are you pretty much up on things?
Yep.
Yeah.
My NFL alert.
Okay.
pretty much the reason.
All right.
My son catches it on his iPad like he did the OBJ trade.
Okay. All right. Okay. And I have something to say about this. The Tyreek Hill situation. To me, we'll see how it plays out, but it just illustrates a deeper problem.
Yeah.
That, well, it's kind of a loophole. I think that needs to be fixed. We'll talk about it on air. And you'll see the draft is the 25th. So today is the 20th, first day of spring. Okay, we're good. Let me give us a time check here. We'll go in 20 seconds, okay? All right. Welcome, NFL football fans. That time again, time for another edition of NFL Football Talk. I'm your host, Charles E. Smith Jr. This is an Inside Sports production, and here we are. It's the off season. This is Wednesday, March 20th. It is the first day of spring, and all kinds of stuff going on in the NFL. We'll go ahead and break everything down for you. What are the free agent signings? Who's still out there? Do we have new powerhouses blooming, especially in the AFC? With the Browns and the Jets making big, huge moves, and what's going on with the Dolphins situation at quarterback. All this and a lot more, but let's go ahead and break everything down. I do not work alone here. As everyone knows, I do enlist the help of the very, very best. So always proud to introduce my co-host. He is a proud graduate of Rutgers University, my favorite East Coast intellectual. And by the way, I know some of you already follow him on Twitter, and if not, you should be. You can follow him at Chris L. Sports. And here he is, the pride of New Jersey, but now somewhere in an undisclosed location in beautiful, sunny, rainy, hailing Southern California, none other than Chris Lardieri. Hey, Chris, what's up out there, man?
Charles, as always, great introduction. Thank you. It's good to be back after about month plus hiatus after that snooze fest of the Super Bowl. Always gives us something to talk about, and even in the off season.
Yeah, absolutely do. And hey, after your boy, we'll talk about your Giants first. Your boy Dave Gettleman says a couple weeks after he says we did not sign Odell just to trade him, and OBJ winds up now. He's a member of the Cleveland Browns, and I think a brilliant move here by Cleveland because now they've got OBJ on one side, they'll have Jarvis Landry on the other, and their wide receivers coach is the same guy who coached the two when they were a pair at LSU.
Yeah, putting my podcasting / journalist hat on, I will say for the Giants, separate of Gettleman, who, much like his name was in Congress for many years, the most dangerous place in Washington was in between the camera and Chuck Schumer. I think I could say the same about Dave Gettleman. This guy loves giving interviews, but also loves contradicting himself. But we were to believe him at his word, and that he got his socks knocked off by this offer by John Dorsey of the Browns, and comparing it just to the Antonio Brown trade, the Raiders, regardless of what you think of the trade or not, I
Right.
think next to nothing compared to what the Giants received for OBJ. So let's just say, all right, they needed this. They had pulled the plug on OBJ despite what everyone says. They're going to deal with the dead cap money for 1 year, save $2 million for this guy. On paper, you get a first-round pick, a third-round pick, and you get a replacement safety in Jabril Peppers for Landon Collins.
Right.
Inside, not the franchise. Looks pretty good, right? But the fan in me and the skeptic says, I've got little or no faith in Dave Gettleman. This guy's a blowhard. He can't even keep track of his own BS. And a guy who says you can rebuild and win at the same time. I mean, sounds to me about as, I don't know, viable as a solar ice cube. I really don't know, but I have little faith in the guy with his drafting skills. I feel Saquon fell to them last year. Don't get me wrong, I like the pick, but I don't know what the plan is. They haven't addressed Eli. Now he says they will in the draft, but honestly, Charles, I'm kind of at my wit's end. I'm on the fence. If Gettleman did a similar thing with Josh Norman, they pulled the franchise tag and let him walk a few years ago. He's
Right.
this hard-nosed, old-school mentality. Get off my lawn type is my impression of him. So I really don't know what to think. If the Giants are rebuilding, more power to them. They better get a him. So I'm all over the place. I guess I'm just a walking contradiction. But the fan in me says I have no faith in Dave Gettleman. But from a bigger picture perspective, I think it could be a win-win for the Giants and the Browns long term.
Well, when we look at it, they've got who should be the most dynamic running back in the league, Saquon Barkley. So maybe it's going from, instead of stretching the field, maybe it's going to be 3 to 6 yards per play and a cloud of dust, and every now and then a crossing route that Eli can throw, and it'll be just kind of one of those, not the most exciting offense in the world, but maybe effective. So if they can play ball control, who knows what might go on there.
Yeah, at this point, I think I have a little more respect for what the Dolphins are doing. Let's bring in Ryan Fitzpatrick. We got a new coach. We're going to be patient with him. We're going to tank this season and hope we get the first draft pick or near the top and get us a quarterback like Tua from Alabama. I mean, there's no fronting there. We know what they're doing. The Giants are they're a contending rebuilder. How about that?
Yeah, there we go. And it seems like with the whole Eli situation, it's just kind of strange. And I've always been kind of a little bit of a closet fan of Eli, but I don't really understand. Do they even have a plan beyond him? It doesn't seem like he's the one holding anything up there. So is there just some type of fear that if they move on from the best quarterback that really that franchise ever saw, unless you go back to Y.A. Tittle, I guess, but are they just kind of afraid to move on? They don't know how to delicately move on from the Eli Manning era. That's what it really seems like.
It does, and we have our good friend, the worst football coach in the history of New York. Well, I mean, either he or Rich Kotite, Ben McAdoo, the way he mishandled the situation 2 years ago, and the public outcry and firestorm when Eli was benched and the streak ended.
Well, bench for Geno Smith. That was weird.
Didn't even bother seeing if Davis Webb was worth it, or they ended up cutting anyway. But I think the firestorm from that has left them a little shell shocked, and maybe they've got some handshake agreement with Eli, with like, all right, when you're ready to go on your own terms, we'll support it, but kind of give us a timeline so we know when to pick a quarterback. I mean, a lot of posture, double talk going on here. Look, I will forever be a fan of Eli, given his 2 tremendous Super Bowl victories over the Patriots. But that said, the guy's finished. He's got no arm strength. He's not the same quarterback he was. His decision making leaves a lot to be desired. I don't know if he thinks he can make the throws he once did, but they need to address it. I mean, that's the same thing I'd say about the Steelers with Ben Roethlisberger, right? So
Right.
they're almost a playoff team, but they have no one behind him either. And then that's another organization that you would think had their stuff together for many, many decades. They're as chaotic as the Giants right now.
Yeah, it's true. Well, and we got to remember they lost, tight end Jesse James. He's gone to Detroit now. Not only that, but Antonio Brown, as we know, he went to Oakland, which was a steal for a 3rd and a 5th rounder. And Le'Veon Bell, now he's going to be with the Jets. So, you know what? I'll tell you what. For those who are a fan of the run game, they don't do it anywhere any better than right there in New York. Whether you like Saquon Barkley or Le'Veon Bell, they're right there and they play in the same stadium.
Yeah, you're going to have 2 good running backs to look forward to and some questionable quarterback play.
There we go. Now, questionable quarterback play. Let's talk about quarterbacks. Joe Flacco, he goes to Denver for a 4th round pick. Nick Foles is going to Jacksonville. He gets a 4-year deal for $88 million. We already talked about Ryan Fitzpatrick. He's going to be the main man there, main signal caller there in Miami, which me as a Dolphins fan, everyone knows that, but I don't know. I'm okay with the whole Fitzpatrick thing. I wanted to move away from Ryan Tannehill. So if we got to do another Ryan, okay, we get Ryan Fitzpatrick instead. At least it's going to be exciting football. I'll just say that. The Dolphins, I'm sure they're going to lose plenty of games. They'll probably be lucky to get 6 or 7 wins next year. But with Fitzpatrick under center, he's going to give you one every single week.
He is. The guy always plays hard. The guy's never afraid to sling the ball. He plays well in streaks, as we saw in Tampa this past season.
Right.
So, yeah, I mean, there are far worse quarterbacks to have. I mean, honestly, I think getting Fitzpatrick and getting rid of Tannehill, I mean, worst case scenario, that's a wash. If anything, it might even be a step up to weight 10 and a weight post injury.
Right.
So, yeah, really not that bad. It's just he's older. He's not the long term solution. He's kind of a placeholder.
Right.
But,
And the best part, the best thing about this is that Fitzpatrick, we say he plays hard, he gives it his all. I think he plays to the best of his ability, which, may be limited or whatnot. But the best thing is he knows his place in the league now. This is the 8th team that he's been on. So he understands that it's not going to be about holding them up for money or how do they move on from the Ryan Fitzpatrick era or anything like that. He's there to do his thing in Miami and then, probably move on.
so would you say he's the Steve DeBerg of his time?
I think he is the Steve DeBerg. I would say Earl Morrall, but I think Earl Morrall had a little bit more, he had some more talent. And Earl Morrall did actually take the Dolphins through that undefeated season in '72 before Bob Greasy returned in the playoffs.
Yeah, and let's not forget his days with the Baltimore Colts.
Yep, absolutely, absolutely. And then you had another quarterback who was like Earl Morrall was Don Strock, who came in later on. And the Dolphins had Wood Strock when they had David Woodley and Don Strock. But don't get me started on Dolphins history, or I will just pretty much never stop. Okay, so let's go ahead and we'll flip the page here. Now, as we know, Kareem Hunt, he got in trouble, punching someone out in a hotel lobby. Okay, so he gets cut by the Chiefs. And here's something I think is a real problem here in the NFL. Not just the personal conduct, but he gets cut by the Chiefs, but then he gets picked up by the Browns, and he just received an 8-game suspension. So we'll see him back, in week 9, playing with the Browns. The Browns have revamped offense. Baker Mayfield will be a quarterback, wide receiver tandem of Landry and OBJ. But Kareem Hunt will bring his dynamic game, which he has it, talking about his game on the field, to Cleveland. Now, just recently, we had Tyreek Hill, who's being investigated now with, I don't want to jump to any conclusions, but let's just say it turns out on the bad side for him. Let's say if Tyreek Hill winds up getting cut by the Chiefs, but still, he can play football later on at some point, even if he sits out a whole year. He can still play football. So here's the problem I have with the NFL and their policy is, when you look at Tyreek Hill, you look at Kareem Hunt, or any others when it comes to these policies, it's like, okay, here's your punishment. You can go on and continue after 6 months or whatever, making more money than 99% of all the Americans. You just can't do it in Kansas City. So when it comes down to it, who really got punished in the whole thing? It's the Chiefs, who get their offense gutted because of off-field activities, but those guys who are involved in those activities can still make their millions that they would have made in Kansas City, but they just have to make it somewhere else.
Yeah, I guess the key is to not release a player who like a Kareem Hunt, who gets caught on tape punching a woman, and ride out the PR storm and let the player serve a suspension or go to his counseling, whatever the case is, and then hope like everything else in America, the dust settles or it blows over or whatever the case is.
Right.
Yeah, the Chiefs did the right thing by cutting him. The Ravens did the right thing by cutting Ray Rice, but
Right.
they're out of running back, so it really is a double-edged sword now. If it's a case of like a Randy Gregory with the Cowboys and it's buyer beware, and he had a history, then shame on you. But I mean, really, I don't know if there was anything out there in the public about Kareem Hunt. Tariq Hill had some issues in college, but
Right.
he's been there have been no issues during his tenure with the Chiefs. So yeah, it's I guess at this point, is there going to be a team that says, we support his efforts to reinstate his life and we condone his behavior? I guess kind of like Bob Kraft, right? The Patriots stand by him, and oh wait, there are no rules for owners committing crimes, right?
Yeah. Well, I don't know how much of a crime it is to get a tuggy at a Florida strip ball. It's just kind of tacky when you're a multi-billionaire. But anyway, the latest I saw, though, on Kraft is that they're willing to drop the charges. And this is a strange thing because it's one thing to plead no contest, but they're willing to drop the charges if he's willing to admit that had the case gone to trial, he would have been found guilty.
Yeah.
What is that?
I don't know. That's a first. I mean,
Yeah.
some sort of lethal putting the gun to his head of sorts. But no, regardless, whether you think it's a crime or not, the guy got arrested for
Right.
not just Bob Kraft.
Well, I remember Irsay got in trouble when he
Exactly.
was,
I was about to say that.
yeah.
He was popping pills or whatever.
Hmm.
There have been other owners. Jerry Jones allegedly having issues with a woman, or I don't know. I forget what it was. There was pictures of him with a woman. Cherry Richardson, basically
Right.
being accused of sexual harassment, and he just went and sold the team, so nothing happened to him. So yeah, there is a double standard there.
Yeah. Definitely. So let's go ahead and move on here. So more player moves. We have to wonder, and one of the things I talk about on the show a lot is I talk about having to win in your window. And when it's your time, you got to maximize it. So we look at the Chiefs. It looks like, I mean, Patrick Mahomes is a great quarterback, dynamic to watch. And also the Chiefs lost their other receiver, not just Tyreek Hill, who we'll see, but anyways, they may have difficulty getting back, and Justin Houston, we'll see what happens with him. Eric Berry, he's gone now. They did not pick up his option, so we'll see what happens with that. But in the NFC, New Orleans Saints, Alvin Kamara, no more of the Alvin Kamara Mark Ingram tandem there, as Ingram has now moved on to Baltimore. So, what is Kamara going to do now with, can he be both the hammer and the sledge in that backfield for the New Orleans Saints? And also, how many seasons does Drew Brees have left in him? It looks like they should have been in the Super Bowl this year, and they're going to have a devil of a time getting back.
Yeah, definitely, and that's the one thing. So much mobility, and I know with the salary cap and everything, there are ways to finagle and manage the cap to where you're up against it and deferring money. I mean, you look at already what the Bears did with Khalil Mack. They converted some of his money to a bonus to make room. It's very hard to keep a team together in this league and to keep your key players that are about to become free agents good. I mean, you can franchise them at some point, but it's really difficult to do, and you've always got to be retooling, and the draft becomes even more important. So I do think the Saints, even in that division, they still got a legit shot to win it. But how much will they miss Ingram? I mean, they didn't seem to miss too much of a beat when he was suspended, but remains to be seen. The Chiefs, however, I got to agree with you, and they went and traded D Ford to the 49ers.
Right.
Really was an up and comer on the defense, separate of that terrible offsides call in the
Ugh.
playoff game against the Patriots. Likely cost them a shot at the Super Bowl, but yeah, you've got to retool on the fly, and you've got to find guys that can play. And I think where teams are made and where divisions and even titles are won is this week or two after the big free agent frenzy with the big names and the big dollar amounts, where you can go pick up a guy or two who may not cost as much. I mean, even you look at Earl Thomas. I know he's coming off injuries, but it was kind of a little bit of a lag, and then he was signed towards the end of it. He may end up being a key contributor to the Ravens now that Eric Weddle left. Look at the Rams.
Right.
They lost Ndamukong Suh, LaMarcus Joyner. They retool getting Eric Weddle and Clay Matthews. It's things like that.
Mm-hmm.
You get a guy, maybe he's at the latter point of his career, sign him to a 2-year incentive-laden deal, and maybe it pays dividends for you. But it's those role players or even those guys kind of behind the scenes that make the difference. And if you're going to tie up a lot of your money with a quarterback or a running back or a top left tackle, you need these role players to win. I think the Patriots show time and again what they know.
Yeah, they do, because their offensive tackle, injured last year, so they just pick someone up and, cut him at the end of the season. But now they picked up Michael Bennett, a linebacker who played last year in Philadelphia. So we'll see what they're able to do. I just think the Patriots, I think their tracking of players is just second to none, because they're always, when we look at it, they have all these holes, and it seems like patchwork, but they're always signing someone off of, someone else's practice squad, signing free agents, guys who were waived, and all this kind of stuff. And they're not big names or anything, but I think that they keep track of anyone who was pretty much on their draft board, and then they just track them through the league. So they always know who's a pretty good player, even though they may wash out with another team, but that team could have a terrible system going.
Absolutely, and who knows? Maybe the player to get along with the position.
Right.
The head coach. It's definitely a system. I mean, it's kind of reminiscent of almost like a Moneyball approach, where Belichick's got this hidden way of evaluating players
Mm-hmm.
or what he looks for, guys Carl Banks. He was a good linebacker coming out of college, but I feel as though Belichick made him into just an excellent one, kind of an unheralded one.
Right.
You even look what Junior Seau. Everyone thought his career was over, and he had a few nice years at the tail end with the Patriots, including that one undefeated season. So yeah, I mean he definitely knows there's a certain mold that he's looking for. And what's funny on the flip side, I feel as though the Lions with Matt Patricia are just trying to get all those guys that were previously with New England or had ties to New England. That's interesting too.
Yeah, there we go. So, yeah, we'll see. I like what Baltimore is, we talked about them, but the way they're kind of retooling. Terrell Suggs going to Arizona. Whoever thought we'd see T-Sizzle in anything but purple?
Agreed.
Yeah.
I get he's coming home, an ASU guy. Yeah, really, really surprising. But there's it's just the nature of the beast now with free agency. I mean, if you're my son had an OBJ jersey. Luckily, he's outgrown it now. But you just don't think, and you get a jersey of a superstar receiver or AP with the Steelers. You really don't think these guys will ever be traded. But anything can happen. I mean, for me, I'm dating myself, but when Wayne Gretzky got traded to the Kings from Edmonton,
Yeah.
that was kind of the beginning of a trend, I'd say, right? Superstars were even able to be traded.
August 9th, 1988. Well, I remember that day well. In fact, I didn't find out until the next day, even though it happened in the afternoon, but because there was no internet or anything, I didn't find out until I got to work the next day and someone said the Kings got Gretzky. I ran to the newsstand and grabbed the LA Times. And that's how I found out about it. So it went a full at least 12, 14 hours since it happened that I didn't even know about it, because back then, no alerts on the phone, no nothing. So if you didn't see the news that night, you just didn't see it.
Yep, those were the days.
Okay, so there we go. Just kind of get you caught up. And also we'll be doing a show probably right before or right after the draft. The draft is on April 25th. One thing we have to talk about here, first, of course, in the draft, we're going to watch the Arizona Cardinals pick Kyler Murray, and we'll get to see if that little, we'll go ahead and call him a little popcorn shrimp, can actually get it done at the NFL level. But something I got to know, not necessarily NFL related, actually not at all NFL related, but it's March Madness. Who you got?
Oh, well, I know everyone wants to pick Duke for personal reasons. Duke is like my version of the Dallas Cowboys. On top of that, me, I'm a contrarian at heart, so everyone's saying why not be. So no, I went through the brackets with my son this evening, filled out a couple of them. I'm going to hedge my bets and say there are a couple teams I think have the ability to win it all. Gonzaga, of course, I know they lost their tournament to St. Mary's, but I think that's a little bit of a blip. I like the way North Carolina played, especially against Duke in the ACC semifinals. A couple shots fall or calls go here or there. I think they win that game. And then a couple other teams a little further down. Tennessee, I think they played well all year in a tough SEC. I think got things fall their way in their brackets. And then two, you might want to keep your eye. I don't know if they can pull it off, but they played really well this year. Kelvin Sampson's a good coach. Keep your eye on the Houston Cougars. I don't have the guts to pull the trigger and say they're going to win it all, but maybe if you do and you want to take a shot on a little bit less of a favorite in Vegas, that might be one team to keep your eyes on. I will say this: I don't think any teams from my home state of New Jersey are going to win it all. Seton Hall, Fairleigh Dickinson. I'll go on a limb and say Fairleigh Dickinson won't win a game, but that's Seton Hall might win a game or two in the bracket. But that's about all I got for you. But yeah, I think too. Texas Tech's another team to watch out for. They might surprise, but honestly, Charles, I think if you go with a 1 or 2 seed and do the proverbial chalk, you should be all right. Don't try and outthink anything. Don't try and find the next New England or Chicago. The value is picking the winner, but I'm not any good at that either.
Yeah, I'm pulling for UNC to go all the way because I'm a Tar Heels fan from way back. But let's talk about. You mentioned the Dallas Cowboys. One thing though with Dallas, they just picked up Randall Cobb, who was Aaron Rodgers' favorite target there in Green Bay for a lot of years. But when we look at that whole thing, now they got Amari Cooper. They look like they're about to maybe do something. We'll see what they do next year. Will Zeke get back on track and Prescott and all those guys? But if we look at Oakland, remember, Oakland last year was pretty much a disaster, but when we look at what they did at the wide receiver position, they picked up Antonio Brown and got rid of Amari Cooper, but they got a first-round pick for Cooper. So basically, for a third and fifth rounder, they upgraded from Amari Cooper to Antonio Brown and a first-round draft pick.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
We ripped him a lot, but yeah, he on that one, and Mike Mayock too is another GM. They did a good job. Yeah, I completely agree. Now the bigger issue is.
And they got Tyrell Williams too, who's a good receiver. Played for the Los Angeles Chargers last year, but now they got him too.
Yeah, the San Diego Chargers in LA. But yeah, I think the bigger issue is, are you going to address your offensive and defensive line and your defensive secondary? I know they got Joyner from the Rams, but those were holes last year. And is Derek Carr your quarterback? Is he your long-term quarterback? Is he the quarterback who looked completely befuddled and disillusioned last year under Gruden's offense, or is he the quarterback of a few years ago that led the Rams to the playoffs? I'm not sure, but we know how Gruden wears down his quarterback, so
Yeah.
something to keep your eye on there. I'm sure they'll give him one more shot this year and evaluate, but yeah, I think that's the bigger issue right there. Carr's got the weapons, but let's see if they've got the talent around him separate of wide receivers.
Well, let's remember, John Gruden won a Super Bowl with Brad Johnson at quarterback, so I think he can pretty much work miracles there.
Yeah, he can, but his thing is, can he develop the young quarterback? I know he did it early in his career.
Right.
It's a different league. It's a different kind of offense. I know he's a workaholic. I know from watching those ESPN shows, he's good at evaluating college quarterbacks. But yeah, I think at this point, it's more a question of the way he works with his quarterbacks, and does he really have the eye for personnel, or is he going to defer to Mike Mayock?
Exactly. And also, late signing just happened a day ago, I believe, was Vontaze Burfict, we'll call him a thug linebacker from the Cincinnati Bengals. He's now going to Oakland. He's going to be playing on the same team with Antonio Brown. Brown tweeted out that it's all well and good. And to me, the Cincinnati Bengals, they got rid of Burfict, but they did it, 3 years too late? They should have cut him and Pac-Man Jones when they combined to basically blow that playoff win over the Steelers in the final moments. And you look at the Bengals have done nothing but go downhill since then, and now they finally cut Burfict. So we'll see what he does there on Oakland. I think, though, Gruden is the kind of coach who, when Burfict goes there, I don't think Gruden is going to take a whole lot of nonsense from him. So it's like one of those things, play hard, play tough, give it your all, but any of that foolishness, and you're done. I think that's the way it's going to be there in Oakland.
Yeah, I agree. And in that case, we'll say it'd be less of a perfect fit, right?
Oh, my goodness. Must be time to end the show on that one, man.
Perfect Strangers reference.
All righty. Hey, folks, remember the show is all unscripted here. We don't really do a whole lot of pre-production or anything. I've got my notes. Chris has his notes there. And remember, we don't have the Elias Sports Bureau in our ear giving us stats or anything like that. So remember, I'm Charles E. Smith Jr. That's Chris Lardieri. You can follow me on Twitter at The Inside Sports. Follow Chris on Twitter at Chris L Sports. And Chris, before we sign off, do you have some final words?
Yeah, the open meetings are in Phoenix this weekend, and rumor has it the competition committee will take up a couple proposals, one from the Chiefs and Andy Reid, which I wholeheartedly support. In the playoffs, both teams should touch the ball in overtime. I don't care. Don't care the way it is in the regular season. I don't want guys taking extra hits, but it's do or die time, and I want to see Pat Mahomes touch that ball once. Had the Chiefs won that coin flip and drove the field for a touchdown, I'm sure Bill Belichick would be pushing for this rule change. And then number two, the Saints proposal, the pass interference and helmet-to-helmet that was never called in the NFC Championship. Will they put this proverbial eye in the sky, extra ref in to overturn blown calls, missed calls, whatever. Will it only be for the playoffs? Look, I think football fans want this. Whether the league does it or not is another story, but these are two very valid proposals to keep your eyes on, and hopefully the league wakes up and takes them into consideration.
Well, so I guess the key to getting overtime rules changed is you have to have a dynamic quarterback not touch the ball in overtime, because it used to be for a long time that all you had to do was get any kind of score in overtime and you won the game, even if it was a field goal. Now, when Brett Favre didn't get a chance to touch the ball when he was playing in that playoff game, I believe it was against the Saints, and the Saints won that in overtime, but they're saying, oh, well, Favre should have gotten a chance to touch the ball. Now they say, well, if you get a touchdown, unless you get a touchdown, they get a chance. Now Mahomes didn't get a chance to touch the ball, so they're saying, well, wait a minute. Now you got to get a chance to touch the ball no matter what.
Yeah, I mean, look, I've always felt this way. I like what college does. I mean, I don't think we'll ever go to that, but the bottom line is both teams get the ball once.
Or maybe it's a different rule for playoffs. Could we do that?
For that, yeah.
Yeah.
I get it. You know what? You don't want these guys in a long season.
Right.
You don't want them to get hurt in overtime, or who knows, they may just end up and quit and play for the time, like the NHL. But no, I say just put it in for playoffs.
Okay.
It's a do or die game. I think it's only fair. I don't think a coin flip should determine the game. You say, oh, the defense should be able to stop them. Well, guess what? The Kansas City and New England defenses were spent. Was that the big back and forth second half? I mean, there's only so much those guys can do after they played 60 minutes of football. So let's do something about it. I mean, do you want to do like soccer and have it decided on penalty kicks?
Yeah.
Or just have 5 field goals with 5 different players taking them? I don't know.
All right, everybody. So thank you for joining us. Remember, the show is NFL Football Talk. We'll be back in about another month. The NFL Draft is the next significant date here. So that's on April 25th. So look for us either before or right after that. You can find us on iTunes, or you can find us on the Podbean app. Just go ahead and download that app to your smartphone. And remember, it's Inside Sports. The show is NFL Football Talk. So for Mr. Chris Lardieri, I'm Charles E. Smith Jr. Thank you for listening, and we'll catch up with you soon. Okay. All right, we're out. Got my time stamps. That's why whenever I say it's going to be, how long it's going to be, I have the counter going on my phone. So I always like to start at either a 0 or a 30. So that when I do the edit, I can just chop out the first however many minutes. And I know it starts right there, so it just makes my editing a lot easier. Yeah. So when I say, okay, we'll start in 23 and a half seconds, now you know why. Oh, all right. All right, cool. That's a good show. So yeah, we'll have to do another one. Yeah, another show in a month. What's that? Yeah. Yeah, I don't know. It's just strange. It's.
Sounds like Peter Griffin.
Yeah, I just look at the scouting and stuff, and I don't know how much. I don't know. It's one of my pet peeves, but I just think with New England, they're the only team really doing I think the way that they scout things is different because they just keep track of players for a lot longer than anyone else does. And they don't worry about those high-profile guys. It's like we're not going for. So I think it's when you have someone on your draft board, either they become a star or they don't. If they become a star, don't worry about them. But those who don't, and still it's the whole the do your job thing, which if we bring you in to be a left tackle, don't worry about anything but playing left tackle. I don't care if the sack occurs on the other side of the field. I don't care who else didn't do what. You come in here, you do this one thing, and that's it. And then, that's all. So, yeah.
They're old school, but they're not.
Right. Because that's the whole thing. I mean, it's almost like, look at the way, Don Shula developed players when you could keep players for a longer time. But, you know, Belichick is that way. I'm bringing you in for this.
Yeah.
Not for anything else. For this.
Yep. It'll be interesting to see how Shiano does there, because he and Belichick have had a relationship for a while. Belichick does like Rutgers players, so
Yeah.
he's got something Belichick likes. So yeah, it's just at some point when he does retire, I think there's a great book to be written about that. I highly doubt he'll do it, but maybe they'll get a fly on the wall or someone who worked in that organization and talk about like the Patriot way.
About, Belichick? Yeah, I know.
Either that or just how they did things, what the secret sauce was.
You know, one thing I saw was interesting. I was watching one of the NFL shows, the NFL Network shows. I can watch those just for the information, but the guys talking are just so brutal sometimes. But it was, what's his name? Rich Eisen, and then you had Michael Irvin, and Marvin Lewis was on there. Michael Irvin just shared a private moment they had in the green room, and he said, Marvin Lewis told him, he says, you know what? I've discovered sleep. And it's one of those things, you don't think about it, but he had been there in Cincy for 16 years. And so normally this is the time of the year when probably, you know, the stomach is churning and everything else, and the draft is coming up and free agency and everything. And you're used to probably sleeping an hour and a half a night. And now he's just sleeping like a baby. It's like, it doesn't matter who signs where or who does what or gets paid. Yeah.
A lot of these guys like Saban will never do the NFL thing. It's too much of a grind. Like in college, after your recruiting season, I mean,
Mm-hmm.
say you're just coaching or practicing,
Yeah.
take some time off. Not year round.
Yeah. I think you have to be kind of wired for it though. Because some guys can't calm down even when they do have time off.
Yep.
You tell them, you know what, don't be around the team for 6 weeks and stuff, and it's like, okay. And they're at home staying up into the wee hours looking up shit on their computer. It's versus Belichick, who, you know, they said everybody's doing all this free agent scramble, and he's in Aruba somewhere, shirtless, not doing anything. Until it's time to get to work. Then you just show up. Oh, yes, I'm Michael Bennett. All right, we're good. That's it.
Yep. Fascinating.
All righty. Okay. Yep. You bet. So I will get this edited tomorrow. Should be up by tomorrow afternoon. All right. All right, man. All my best to you and yours.
Likewise. Have a good one.
All right. Peace out. Late.